All right, for those of you guys joining, please feel free to go ahead and put in the chat just a quick introduction about yourself if you'd like. But we're going to go ahead and get started. Hello and welcome, everyone. My name is Alyssa Rice. I'm the Business Development Liaison for the Professional Development Center here at St. Ambrose University. If you've never attended a Lunch and Learn with us before, we're so happy to welcome you today. And if you have been here before, welcome back. We're glad to see you here again. It's always great to learn alongside you all and gain some new information. Before we get started, I would like to take the time to thank our sponsors for today's Young Professional Series Lunch and Learn, the JCs of the Quad Cities. They have sponsored this particular series for a couple of years now, and we are so grateful for their generosity. The JCs do a lot to encourage leadership in our community, especially among young professionals. If you haven't had a chance to check them out and you're looking for ways to get involved in our community, I highly encourage you to check out one of their monthly meetings and to see what incredible group they are. So thank you again to the JCs of the Quad Cities. Without further ado, I have the pleasure today of introducing Diane Murtha. Diane is a St. Ambrose University alumna who had a 32-year career with the Department of Army. In 2018, she went on to create her own business. And with her own business, she shares her own journey through lectures to inspire and encourage others to challenge themselves. And with that, thank you so much, Diane, for being here today and taking the time to speak with us. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Very happy to be here. And then again, just for everybody, I'm coming to you from our RV in Wisconsin. I'll be lecturing in Oshkosh tomorrow night. I'm going to start with I'm just going to share my PowerPoint here, just a quick quote from Van Gogh, which Van Gogh wasn't necessarily very successful in his lifetime, but he always was very insightful about what he needed to do and not feeling bad about successes that other people were having. And I always thought that was encouraging. Okay, so challenge yourself. You never know where it will lead. Now, we don't have answers to life's big questions. Where's my career going to lead? Is this the right job for me? Should I move? Should I stay? But with a solid education and the spirit to continually challenge yourself, you can achieve some amazing things. I have. As Alyssa said, I had a 32-year career with the Department of Army, in which I had some incredible assignments and some wonderful successes, which allowed me to travel the world. And then in retirement, I started my own business, teaching and lecturing about quilting. And I'm also writing a book. And if I can do these things, so can you. So my goal for today is, one, to inspire you to be the best you possible. And only you know what that is. Secondly, to challenge you to take the extra steps, the big steps, the tough jobs, because big risks yield big rewards. And thirdly, maybe you will go back after lunch and have a new or renewed attitude about your current job and where you are going in the future. How many of you are from the Quad City area? Just raise your hands. And also feel free to ask questions at any time or type something in, and Alyssa will help me watch for that. So I grew up in Davenport, not far from St. Ambrose, near the East Village of Davenport. And when I was going to St. Ambrose, I really didn't have any great future aspirations or career goals. I assumed, like the rest of my classmates, I would find a job and I would figure it out. But my father was always very encouraging. He would say, you can do anything. Get in there and try and do your best. And he always would say, I'm very proud of you. No matter what, he was proud of me. So that was encouraging words that helped me often through my career. I graduated with a degree in accounting and business. Later, I went to school in the evenings to get my MBA. And then about 10 years after that, I went back for a second master's in resource management. I started my career in quality assurance at the time, it was one of 7 major buying commands for the Army located on Rock Island Arsenal Island. As a young intern, I kind of just was learning and listening and doing, what I was supposed to do. I also took the initiative to do a lunchtime learning program with Toastmasters, which was a public speaking program. I don't know that Toastmasters is still out there anymore. There was also a program called Dale Carnegie and a couple other things. But basically, it was opportunities to practice speaking in public, doing speeches in a small group during your lunch. So I gave up my lunchtime to practice doing this public speaking. And public speaking is very important in almost any career field. If you're really super not comfortable with it, that's understandable. But usually with a little practice, everybody does a fine job, and you don't want that to be a factor that holds you back. So I took the initiative to do that. Also, our senior executive had strongly recommended that we join the American Society for Quality. It was a professional organization. They had a meeting once a month. Well, some of my colleagues said, well, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to give up my evening to go do this. I don't want to hang out with these people after work. But several of us did. And I got to meet colleagues, journeymen, and executives in the private industry who were also in quality. So people from John Deere, Rockwell Collins, General Dynamics, Lockheed Martin, and many others. I was building a network. So look for the professional organizations that are either associated with your career field, or even like the JCs, another group where you can do some networking. Later, our senior executive again strongly recommended that we take the technical certification exams offered through the American Society of Quality. They had 3 different levels. And some of my colleagues said, I'm not going to spend my own money to go take this exam. Well, 3 of us decided we were going to do it. We bought the study guide and studied, paid to take the test, and took the exam. And there was 2 things came out of this. One is, why do you think our director wanted us, or our senior executive wanted us to do this? Because American Society for Quality was a nationally known association, it didn't matter where we were in the country. If we were traveling to a defense contractor in California, in New York, it didn't matter. If we told them we were certified through American Society for Quality as a quality assurance manager, they right away knew what my skill level was and my accreditation. If I told them, oh, I took some classes through the Army, they had no idea, what my professional level was. So if I told them I was certified through this national organization, they right away knew I was on par with my industry peers. Okay, going back to some of us taking the test and some not because they didn't want to spend their own money. Well, after the 3 of us took the class and the test and passed, our organization gave us a special on-the-spot award, $250, which more than covered the cost of the exam and the study guide. And the reason they gave for giving us that award was for showing initiative. Now, they didn't, so then of course everybody else says, well, hell, if I knew, if I knew they were going to pay for it, I would have taken the class and taken the test too. Well, that was the idea, was to see who's willing to take the extra steps. So that's kind of important. I also made some mistakes. We had our HR department used an automated resume review process. So the resume was sent through this automated process to look for keywords before the HR person saw it. I was applying for a promotion and my resume did not include the special keywords. So it was rejected and it didn't go to a real person. It didn't go to the hiring supervisor. I lost that opportunity for a promotion. I was very upset, but I learned a valuable lesson. I went back and learned about how that resume system worked and how to better write my resumes using the keywords from the job announcement so that I was able to pass the computerized portion of the resume review. I got so good at it, in fact, that I became the go-to person with my peers and even some of the journeymen to come to if they needed help with their resumes. So now I was giving back. I'm not just climbing the ladder, but I'm offering ways to help my peers, even those who were competing against me in some cases. And it helped that those that I helped actually got to the interview process. So that meant that what I had learned and what I was passing on was successful. After about 10 years in quality assurance, I started to look for something else. I had looked across the organization and realized there wasn't too many upward mobility opportunities at the moment. At the time, our organization, like many others, were downsizing. So if a branch chief retired, they consolidated 2 branches into one. So they were reducing the amount of management that they had. And the managers that were currently there were nowhere near, retirement age. So I realized there's not going to be an opening, an upward mobility opportunity for me here for quite a while. So this is the time to go wide. Look for something else across the organization, another opportunity to expand in a different career field that may be compatible. So here's a question for you. What does every organization have? Every organization, no matter what kind of business, they always have an HR department. They often have logistics of some kind. They always have IT. They probably have some kind of program management. And then they also have a budget or accounting office. It's very important to understand how money works in your organization. First, you want to stay within the budgets of your organizations. But if you can save them money or reduce costs, that's even better. So I chose to find a job in resource management. And if you're going to work in resource management, why not work in Heidelberg, Germany? So I looked for a job in Europe and I took an assignment in Heidelberg, Germany. Now, this was a huge step, because not only was I now in a new home, but a different country, a different language, and a whole new career field. I have to admit that there were some times that I just went home and cried because it was hard. I remember one time just going to the local bank and trying to talk to them. Everybody in the work environment spoke English, but if you were out on the economy, grocery shopping, getting your car repaired, most of them spoke German. So I had some challenges. It was well worth it in the long run, but it was hard. But I had some great colleagues who helped support me, and it was a really good experience. And again, I learned a lot about resource management that helped me in the future, balancing budgets and saving money later on in my career. About 5 years into that job, my parents started having some health problems, and I wanted to get closer to Iowa. So I looked for something in the Washington, D.C. area. I had reached back and called one of my quality assurance managers and said, hey, I'm thinking of coming back, any ideas? And he's like, Diane, your timing is perfect. We would like to have a presence in the headquarters in the DC area to help influence headquarters level policy on quality assurance. So we're creating this new position. So I said, perfect, I'd like to do that. Now I'm using my MBA skills in negotiating and leadership with not just the Army, but Navy, Air Force, the Office of Secretary of Defense, NASA, and other defense agencies, and networking at much higher levels and across other services. That was a particularly challenging position because I was sitting in an organization that I didn't really belong to, and they kind of wanted to suck me into doing jobs for them when I was really just kind of renting an office space to do this broader assignment. After a while in that, and during my whole career, I was always continuing to keep up on all my professional certifications, either in auditing, resource management, quality assurance, and I was doing advanced education, either in leadership programs or classes. So I had a reputation of, one, continuing to educate myself and stay current in my fields, and two, when I took the tough jobs, I was successful at them. I was getting some real results that made the bosses happy. Later, I had a phone call from someone who said, Diane, I'm vacating my position. It's the director of the Special Staff Office working for the 4-star general. I think you would be perfect for this. So I applied and got that position. The 4-star general, and my husband says, well, not everybody might be military and won't understand. Well, the 4-star general for the Army Materiel Command, the slogan used to be, if a soldier wears it, eats it, fires it, rides it, flies it, the Army Materiel Command was responsible for it. So our 4-star commander was responsible for billions, with a B, billions of dollars worth of equipment and thousands of people. So I was working down the hall from him on his special staff. Now I'm also using my business degree. I had a staff, a graphic arts staff that was primarily civilian, and then a military staff that changed out every usually 2 years. And I was now had to learn human resources. And I remember we had a secretary, and she had been in that position for 15 years. She was really the corporate knowledge of that office, because the military staff changed over every 2 years. She really had the history of the organization. I remember giving her her performance review, and I talked about what she did well, some areas of improvement, and I also offered her some suggestions on if she wanted to move up, some broadening opportunities for her. And guess what? She cried. I felt terrible. I'm like, oh my God, Doreen, why are you crying? And she said, in 15 years, nobody has ever taken the time to give me a real performance evaluation. And nobody cared about her being more than just a secretary. So she was my new best friend. But she truly did have a lot of corporate knowledge, and she had other skills. So I was very happy that I was able to give her a good review that she felt was helpful for her in the future. In this particular assignment, I also had to sometimes deliver the 4-star boss some bad news. I got the reputation then of not being a yes person, but being forthright enough to deliver the bad news. And that is a very important thing. Bosses especially, don't want to be surrounded by all yes people, because then they're making the wrong decisions based on the information you're bringing them. You have to do it politely and very respectfully, but I would say, sir, my information is slightly different. And he'd say, well, how slightly different? And I'm like, well, it's pretty different. And so he'd say, come and talk to me, get on my calendar and come talk to me. But that was a good reputation to have, because also if there was something that he just didn't feel was quite right, that he may not be getting the full story, he would call me in and say, Diane, I want you to go investigate this. Go look into it and come back and tell me the truth. And sometimes I had to come back and say, yes, sir, that's the bad news. That they were right. It's that bad. And other times it was like, no, they kind of sugarcoated it a little bit. Anyway, it was a good reputation. It was a little scary. The one time I got called in and I thought, oh, I'm going to be in trouble. And that's when they said, no, you know what? I don't need everybody around me saying yes and telling me I'm so great. I need somebody telling me the truth. So that was a very good lesson. And so like that job, working as the director for that special staff, getting the phone call, some of my best jobs have just kind of fallen into my lap because I had a reputation of doing tough jobs and doing well at them. The same thing happened on a special project for the Secretary of the Army. I got a phone call on a Sunday night and my boss said, the Secretary of the Army wants to set up a program to manage services acquisition, and services are all the other non-hardware things that the Army uses. Telephones, lawn mowing services, medical services, cooking facilities, cleaning facilities. And that was, again, services cost the Army billions with a B dollars, and they didn't have a real structure that they wanted. When I got the phone call on that Sunday night, I'm like, I'm not sure this is the right time for me to do this. I'll have to think about it. And I got to work on Monday morning and my mentor said, no, Diane, what's there to think about? The Secretary of the Army is asking you to help on this project. He's like, let's just go down and talk to him and see what you think. And of course I walked in there and, the secretary says, Diane, thank you so much for helping me with this big problem. It's something we have to get our arms wrapped around. And what did I say? Yes, sir. It's my pleasure. I'm happy to do it. But that was a very challenging assignment. We had to work pretty hard to meet the requirements, and we were on a very short time frame. But that was good. And again, during this whole time, I'm continuing to network and meet with other people in other industries and agencies, and I'm helping people. I've been a mentor throughout my career. After that, I retired. I took an early retirement, and I started my own business of teaching and lecturing on quilting and writing for magazines on quilting. And none of that would have been possible if I hadn't, one, got comfortable speaking in front of people. So throughout my quality career, I spoke at quality conferences on technical subjects. If I can speak on technical subjects, I can definitely talk about a subject that I'm passionate about, my quilting hobby. I'm now using more of my MBA skills for business planning, budget planning, program management, marketing, advertising, and it's on my schedule. So today I'm, kind of casual. This is my creative side of my career as an artistic quilter, writer, and author. And all of that was possible because of all the projects and jobs that I had before this, all of the St. Ambrose education that I had that brought me to this point. And you never know when the right job is going to come up, but you keep working at it and it leads you places that then open other doors, open other doors and other opportunities. Obviously in 32 years, I had a lot of ups and downs, but what I tried to talk about was a lot of the things where I took on the tough jobs and how it was a reward in itself that I was acknowledged. It was acknowledged for the successes, and other doors were opened up. I also now want to talk about 6 or 7 different areas that I want you to think about. So limitations, don't put them on yourself unnecessarily. As an example, we had a 6-year-old foster child in Virginia, and somebody asked her what she wanted to do when she grew up. And her answer was, well, I'll go to high school and I'll get married, because that's just the way it is. And, you know, my first answer is, well, hell no. Any daughter living in my house is going to know that there are other opportunities. But she assumed that that's the way it was because nobody had ever told her any different, or that it had to be that way. So don't put those limitations on yourself. People will say, oh, I have kids, so I can't travel. That's not true. You may not want to travel, but it doesn't mean that you can't. Don't let that be a limitation or an obstacle for you. Military families do it all the time. And honestly, your children will be around for a lifetime. They'll be little, they'll be big, you know, they're always going to be there. So you need to figure out how to incorporate your job around your family and your children. Then also, not only just putting limitations on yourself, but also know what you won't do. And you may not know that. I mean, you know, you don't always have your family principles, you know, lined out. But when the time comes, sit down and think about the pros and cons, what's good for you, your career, what's good for you and your family. It all has to work together. I had applied for the senior executive position, which was the highest one that you can hold as a civilian. I made it through the first rounds of interviews, and it took a long time for them to get to the second round of interviews. And during that time, they moved the duty position from Northern Virginia, where I lived, to Southern Virginia, which would have been like a 3-hour commute, which meant I would have had to geographically move there and commute back on the weekends. While that was doable, I decided that was a sacrifice I wasn't willing to take. I really, really, really wanted that job. I wanted to take the second interview and see if I could get accepted, but then I would have to turn it down. And I decided I'm not going to waste their time and ruin my reputation. And I just knew that it wasn't going to be right for me to move. So know what you will and won't do. And then that leads me to, let me just, also for my quilting business. So I traveled for 32 years, often by myself, most of the time by myself. And I was fine with that. But it's not a big deal for me to travel or stay in a hotel or eat in a restaurant. So with my quilt business, I lecture both in person and virtually. But I wouldn't be willing to travel to a lecture in person if I couldn't do it in my RV and bring my husband and my dog along. I did it, you know, in my professional career. I've just chosen that if I'm not able to do it in the RV, then I'm not going to do it. We can do it virtually, or I'm not going to do it. At this point in my life, 60, almost 61, sorry. Ooh, don't want to go overboard. 61, I'm not going to travel by myself without my husband. So those are limitations and things that I know that I will not do. I mentioned to Alyssa before, have you heard of quiet quitting? Just raise your hand. Quiet quitting, yes, no? Okay, so quiet quitting is the philosophy of only working within your set hours, only doing what your job description says. It's kind of quitting the idea of doing the extra stuff. And there may be a time and place for that. However, if you're not going to show in any initiative or do anything extra, then don't expect promotions, raises, or recognitions of any kind. I think there's some negative connotations around the quiet quitting philosophy. it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. However, that said, what I would propose is I would prefer that you choose how and when you want to accelerate in the office and when you don't want to. And you let your boss know when you're willing to give more. So maybe it's not after the birth of a child, or maybe not after a family illness. But maybe you're willing to stay 2 or 3 nights a week. Maybe it's Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and you let the boss know, hey, these are the days I'm willing to stay a little late or work on another project. Or maybe it's in the summers when the kids don't have as many after-school activities. You kind of set the parameters, and it's okay that they change, but it also gives the boss the message that you're willing to do a little bit more, but it's on your terms, so that you are a little bit more balanced. All right. That leads me to work-home balance. Weekends are meant to relax and refuel. Do not overfill your weekends. And same with vacations. Vacations are R&R. It's time to relax. How many of you go on vacation and come back more tired? And sometimes that's a little fun, but in the long run, it wears you down. Europeans would never think of taking a 1-week vacation or a 3-day vacation. They take 3 weeks at a time. And there is a lot of studies about how that is more restful, because it takes you, your ramp down time from the job is a few days, and then you kind of relax and enjoy, and then you start worrying about, stuff again. So Europeans take a minimum of 3 weeks, and that's really good time to chill and relax and enjoy life. So just think about balance, in at home and at work. Don't overdo at home. And that also means with kids. I know everybody thinks all your kids have to participate in every activity. They really don't. We raised our boys, we raised many foster children, and usually they got to participate in one sport activity and one non-sport activity, and it worked fine. We had Friday nights were family movie and pizza night. Sundays were some kind of physical activity. We would go hiking or go swimming. So find some balance, and within your family, also find support networks. Mentors are fabulous. Running buddies or workout buddies, somebody that you can vent with. And then the support networks for your family, neighbors, family, friends, people from the church that can help you with the children, if you need help or something. It just really helps you to have that support system. My sister had a job with John Deere. She worked a lot of long hours. My brother-in-law was a farmer. I often got a phone call to go pick up the kids from daycare because she couldn't get there in time. And, that was fine. Aunt Diane was, pretty special. And I got to spend a lot of quality time with my niece and nephews for a while. So have that support network where someone you trust can be called to help. Or again, a mentor or somebody that you can go and vent with about work situations. I used to go for a 3 or 4 mile run. The first mile, all I was doing was thinking about work. And about the 2nd or 3rd mile, I would say, oh, where did those trees come from? When did the birds start singing? Well, I had finally worked through all of the business stuff in my head, and now I can relax. So those things are important as far as finding balance in your life. Also know your environment, especially the unwritten rules or culture of your organization. So in Germany, the Army positions were undergraded. So that meant you got less pay for more responsibility. For me, I was willing to take a downgrade to go and do that because I would have a broader set of skills in that lower paid position than my counterparts in stateside positions. And on top of that, I was in Germany. I could go to Paris for the weekend. I could go anywhere. So to me, it was worth the balance, the trade-off. Another office unwritten culture thing in our organization, when I was an intern, our senior executive would walk around after 4:30 and chat with whoever was still in the office. So as a young intern, I was getting really good quality FaceTime with the senior executive. Sometimes, he would usually ask, well, what are you working on? How's it going? Sometimes he told some war stories about, his travels and his business, but it was FaceTime that other people were not getting. If you left right on time, you didn't even know that you were missing that opportunity. So there's a lot of examples in organizations that are like that. Look at who's getting promoted. What skills do they have? What accreditations do they have? What degrees do they have? Now, you don't necessarily have to emulate that, but it's kind of good to know what the organization values. And challenge yourself. Take initiative to take on additional assignments and responsibilities. Now, you don't have to wait to a performance review time to ask. You can go and just ask the boss that, hey, I'm getting my work done. I think I'm doing a pretty good job. I'm willing to take on some more. I'd be happy to work on a special assignment. Now, one of my friends, she works for a defense contractor in California. She had been a secretary for most of her career, and she got a fabulous promotion into a program management position. She didn't feel like, she felt like she was, she had too much time on her hands. So she decided to create a birthday list. She went around the office and asked everybody when their birthdays were, and she created a list. Now, do you think that was valuable in her program management position? Do you think the boss thought that was a valuable use of her time? Probably not. So a better option would be go to the boss and say, hey, I've got a little extra time. I think I'm getting everything done. Is there something else I can do for you? Or, hey, boss, I've got some ideas on how to improve XYZ process. If you think it's valuable, I'd like to take some time to draft up some thoughts and present it to you. Now, the boss may say, yes, that's valuable and that's what I want you to spend your time on. They may say, no, not interested. But it still sends a message that you are invested in the organization and that you are paying attention and you're looking around, and I want to say, and you're smart, but that you are acknowledging what's happening in the organization and you're willing to put yourself out there. It might be a day or a week later and the boss may come back and say, hey, I thought a little bit more about that. I would like you to do that. Or they may come back and say, you know what, I thought of something else that I would really rather you spend your time on. That's all good. Again, you've sent some messages to the organization on what you're willing to do. And when the time is right, give back. Either, JCs, mentoring within your organization. I have mentored or coached informal programs and informally throughout my career. And it's been a wonderful thing. I always learn as much from the people I'm mentoring as they learn from me. And that's an important thing, is to help other people up the ladder as you are going as well. We have some questions, Alyssa. I've got a couple other things, but are we doing okay?
Yes, I think we are good in the chat right now. If anybody does have a question, though, please feel free to put it in the chat and I will make sure Diane knows about it. Okay. I do have a quick question, though, just before you go on. Yeah. I guess, what kind of advice do you have for young professionals when asking for feedback. I know that can be a very difficult conversation to have, especially when maybe you're not feeling super confident in the stuff that you're doing, or maybe you're learning things from people, the stuff that you haven't done before. But that popped into my head when you were kind of talking about stuff. So any advice on that?
Yes. So first of all, we usually always think we're pretty good, and we may not be as good as we think we are. So when you go into a performance review or ask for feedback, be prepared for some negative stuff, and don't take it personally. Take a little time to think about it. And then you can come back into the boss and say, you know what, I thought a little bit about that, and I either don't understand, or I'd like you to explain it a little bit more, because I want to improve in that area. So give me some examples of how I can improve in those areas. But basically, be prepared. It's not all going to be pretty. And if it is all pretty, then you still need to ask for opportunities to advance and take on more challenges. But a real good session, a real good review will give you some areas, should give you some areas where you need to improve. And be asking for that. Okay. Okay, so we're doing okay on time, right? Okay. So yes, I wanted to talk a little bit about, people will say, oh, you find the job that you're passionate about. Well, how do you know? When I first started, I don't think you are going to find the job that you're passionate about when you first start. You want to find a job that you enjoy and that you feel challenges you. And that's good enough for now. And again, that's the whole idea, is challenge yourself. You don't know how or where it's going to lead you in the future. My husband likes to say, the phrase, a bad day on the golf course is better than a good day at work. He says, no, that's not true. A good day at work is a good day. You really feel like you've accomplished something. You can be proud of yourself. So find the value in your job and be glad that you're contributing to it. Now, if it's a job that you're really not happy about, you still want to bloom where you are planted. You want to leave there with a good reference, a good review. So do the best darn job you can at that job that you really don't think you like, while you're looking for something else. Okay, don't stay somewhere that you hate, but do the best you can, find ways to bloom, and then move on. Okay, if you do love the job, then keep looking for places to advance, other things to do. All right. Now, an example is, we had a woman who came when I was working for the 4-star general and the special staff office. She was in a special leadership program where she was getting a master's degree, and she was getting exposure in 2 different career areas. She came and she would come in late. She had no enthusiasm. You had to almost drag her to get to meetings. And I called her in and I'm like, what's going on? You've got a golden opportunity. You're 50 feet away from someone who could give you a fabulous reference that nobody else at your stage in your career would get. And she says, well, this isn't what I want to do. This isn't my goal. And I said, well, what's your goal? She says, I want a job in Europe. I said, oh my gosh, I worked in Europe. Everybody in uniform in this office was stationed somewhere in Europe. All of us have at least 12 points of contact still in Europe that we could refer you to, but not based on the work that you've done right now. I would not risk my reputation referring you to a position based on what I know now or the work that you've shown me. But it was like a light bulb went off, that she now saw that there was a way for her to achieve her goal if she did well in a position that she didn't think she wanted. We also talked about, well, there are a lot of HR positions in Europe, maybe switch from program management and logistics to program management and HR. So you get a rotation into HR, which would further open up your opportunities to get to Europe. But she just automatically assumed that there was nothing for her in that position until we talked about it. So, you know, it again, part of your performance review or before that, when you go into a new job, talk to the staff, talk to your boss about where the organization is going, how they see you fitting in, where you might go in the future. You know, you want to try to figure out how you can contribute and be valuable. You know, my husband and I were talking as we were driving down the road today. How did I get into quality assurance? I needed a job. I graduated. I needed a job. It opened up. Now, it was a good fit for me because quality assurance has rules and regulations. You have to stay within the parameters and specifications. It was important to me that I was helping get good quality products to our soldiers in the field to help keep them safe. So I felt that I had a valuable job and was contributing no matter where I was in the organization at the time. But all that said is I want you to challenge yourself. You never know where it might lead.